All right, greetings from the Dark Continent. Conscious Caracol here, or Adams van Sail, here to shine a light on the goings on down south here in the southern tip of Africa. But I'm also talking to a southerner from the southern parts of the United States to illuminate us particularly on his art form. And that art form is writing, and performing music about South Africa and Afrikaners. And Dean, not the first time you're on my channel. You've been a guest here before, but this time there's some newsworthy event that I'd like to discuss. You just released a new song, and I'm looking forward to share with my audience. Welcome back on the show.
Ernst, my Afrikaans it seems like it's only getting worse as I try to like even your name, I mean, I can tell that you're trying to compete on the mustache, I think, since last
Can't
time.
compete.
But, so I finally learned how to say, I thought it was Ernst, and then I learned it was Ernst. So how do I say it now?
Adams van Sail, so Ernst. Almost like you say arid, yeah.
Right, so Ernst. Okay,
yeah.
I can get that right now. All right.
Yeah, but Dean, I mean, really, you're being humble, but you've made an Afrikaans song. You've made a song that is predominantly Afrikaans, and we can talk about it later in this conversation. But I think that's phenomenal. Texan. I don't think there's a lot of Texans out there with no that weren't born in South Africa that have made songs in Afrikaans.
Well, I'm trying. We did another video before this called the Boer Makaplan.
Yes.
And I tried to sing half of that in Afrikaans too. And then we did a couple skits that we put up also that where I got to be the Boer. I always wanted to be a Boer. And then I got to be myself, in the video. So I got to say that I don't speak Afrikaans, I sing Afrikaans. So I'm falling back on that.
I think you're one of the few people in the world, maybe a handful of people that speak Afrikaans with a Texan accent.
Yeah, someone said they could understand it, but it definitely had an accent. So at least they could understand it, which was the whole point.
Right. So Dean, let's start at the beginning. You told my audience the story last time, and I know your story, but maybe some new audience members have joined since then that don't know your connection to South Africa. It's a long story, it's a detailed story, but give them a little bit of a summary. How did you fall in love with South Africa, and then later with the Afrikaner people, the culture of the Boers?
I was when I got out of the army, I started working at a cotton gin. And you guys would call that a cotton ginnery, I think. And there used to be a lot of cotton in South Africa. And so I started working for a company that sent me to Jan Kempthorpe to put in some machinery. They just do peanuts now, but they used to grow a lot of cotton in Jan Kempthorpe. So that was in 1989. That was my first trip to South Africa. And, I just kind of fell in love with South Africa because the Boer was just like how I was raised. He was a family, God, and work. And that, and we'll talk about the refugees going over to hopefully to America. But I had so much in common with the people there in Jan Kempthorpe, other than Afrikaans. I couldn't speak it at all, but I had so much in common with the things they believed, with God, with family, with the friends, with just everything in general. I felt like I was right at home. So that was the beginning of my relationship. I went back.
And that was around which time, Dean? Around what
89,
year?
89. And so I went back several times to put in machinery in Jan Kempthorpe. And then I went back home, and I had several years later, I had a midlife crisis. And so I said to myself, where would I go? Where do I feel more like as much as home as I feel in Texas? And I don't know, South Africa just popped into my mind. And so I went back to South Africa in 92. And I was the first, one of the first, well, for sure, I was probably the first illegal in South Africa. And I went on a 3-month visa, and I stayed for a year. And when I was leaving from the airport, the Afrikaner, he looked at my passport, and he looked at my visa, and he said, well, at least you're leaving. And he gave me my passport back, and I went back home to the States. And but I never got South Africa out of my heart and out of my mind. So I got married, and I raised a daughter and a son. You met Joshua, didn't you? Did you meet
I
Joshua?
don't think I've met him. I've spoken to him over the phone very briefly, but I've not met him in person. No.
So I remember that. So I was always talking about South Africa. So when he got out of college, we decided to go over and ride motorcycles in South Africa. Of course, it was 2019 in December. So we rode motorcycles for around a month. And when it was time to go back home, COVID hit. So there were
Right.
no planes left leaving South Africa. We were stuck in South Africa for about 4 months before finally we got the last plane out.
But Dean, I mean, I didn't I forgot about this story, but I'd like you to share it with my audience if you feel so inclined. How you got out of South Africa is a fascinating story.
So we have a little service company back home, and so I've been working basically since '92. I went back home, so I've been working for like 30 years, right? I really didn't have a lot of vacations or anything. So when we're stuck in Hatfield during COVID, I'm getting the first break, in 29, 30 years, and I'm enjoying myself. But I have one of those friends, the bulldog friends that once they get on an idea, they never give up. And so
Right.
this one happens to be a dermatologist. Now, I don't know fancy people, but his son and my son wrestled together. So he's like the one of the fan. We became very good friends. But he's a dermatologist, and he is a cancer doctor, and he works on a lot of important people all over Houston. So he kept saying, "You better get out of there. You're going to be stuck. You're never going to, you're never going to get out of there if you don't leave South Africa." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, we need to get out of there." So unbeknownst to me, one of the guys that he worked on was an owner of the Texans. So he owned the Texans football team. And he had been a colonel in the Army, and I kind of knew him too at the same time. We'd both been to something called Ranger School in the Army. And but he was a colonel, and I was like a sergeant. So he tells Colonel Sutton, he says, Dean is stuck in South Africa. You must know somebody that could help. He says, "Well, I know Ted Cruz," because he was like a donor, right? He's a donor. And so my friend Bruce says, "Well, if you know Ted Cruz, have him call Dean." He says, "Well, I'll call Ted Cruz." He says, "No." He says, you got if he's really a senator like he's supposed to be, have him call Ted Cruz. Have Ted Cruz call Dean. So Sutton calls me, says, "Hey, Cruz is calling you," because my friend twisted his arm. So the middle of the night, the phone rings, and Ted Cruz is on the line. I say, "Hello, Mr. Cruz. I voted for you." And he says, "I heard you're stuck in South Africa with your son." And I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Well, let's see what we can do." And that's the last. And we had just had a notice from the American Embassy like a week before that all flights were canceled. There were
There's no way out.
everything had been. It was the end of April, so everything had been mothballed, and so I never knew what actually happened, but a miracle happened of some kind, and they called us and they said there's one more flight out, but you have to pay your money into a bank in New York, and it's going to the South African government. That's the only way you're getting out. So 400 and something people, and we paid our money, which was about $4,500, into a bank you had to submit it before you got your ticket. So we submitted it, but they never took it out. Can you believe the South African government not taking money from someone? They never took the money over. We got a free flight back home to Texas. And so that was and I saw Ted Cruz again at Colonel Sutton's yearly dove shoot that he has. And I said, "Hey, Mr. Cruz, thank you very much for getting us out of Africa. Do you remember?" And he said, "Well, did it happen?" And I say, "Yes, sir." He says, "Well, then I'm glad you made it back." So, so many things going on, that, but it was a blessing to be able to get out of South Africa and to get back home and carry on with our little business. So the other part of the story was, so while I'm in South Africa, of course, I'm hearing Malema sing Kill the Boer. And I gave my song about to 3 different people. And when we got back home to
Just
Texas,
for context, Dean, for those that don't know, that's the song "It Ain't Easy to Kill a Boer."
it ain't easy to kill a Boer. And when I got back home, about people started calling me and telling me they'd gone viral in the farming community. So then everyone was stuck in COVID, and after COVID settled down a little bit, that's why I decided to come back and and try to sing a little bit in South Africa. So that's how I ended up over in South Africa.
So tell us a bit about that song. That's your first hit among Afrikaners and Boers, and just tell us a bit. I mean, you've touched on it now, but the thought process behind it. What drove you to write that song and perform that song?
Well, I, like every good English-speaking person interested in South Africa, you read your Wilbur Smith books. Although he puts the Boer in kind of a bad light in his books. But I had been over, I had already been over in Jan Kempdorp. I already knew who the Boer was. And then I had read a lot about the history of it, a few Wilbur Smith books. And then I started reading about the history of South Africa also. So I knew that from '89 when I had gone over. And when I heard them singing Kill the Boer, I thought to myself, well, that's the stupidest thing I think I've ever heard. Because I knew about arriving at the Cape. I knew about the Great Trek. I knew about the First Boer War. I knew about the Second Boer War. I knew that the only way England won the Second Boer War is they put all the women and children in concentration camps. So I knew a few of these facts. So I said to myself, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Kill the Boer, because they're not just like, they're not that easy to kill. And so that really inspired me to write. I had been writing songs since I was probably about 17. I was in the Army, so I was the kind of kid that I left home when I was 17 because I couldn't leave when I was 12. You can't leave. So I left home when I was 17, and I went in the Army. You had to have your parents' permission to join the Army. So while I was so I went in the 82nd Airborne because my favorite uncle had been 82nd Airborne in the Second World War. And he was my favorite uncle. I wanted to go in the Army like he did, so I did. But I had a friend from South Carolina. So back in the 70s, if you were doing something illegal, say you robbed a bank, you robbed a store, in his case, it was moonshining. So he was moonshining in South Carolina. So the judge said to him, okay, 3 years in jail for moonshining or 3 years in the Army. So Tommy Saxon was his name. He chose 3 years in the Army. So I meet Tommy. He's in the Airborne too, like I am. But he could play the guitar and he could sing. Wonderful singer, wonderful guitar player. And I said to Tommy, Tommy, could you help me learn how to play the guitar? And, sometimes people that don't have your best interest at heart, they really give you good advice. And he said, if you want to play the guitar, just pick up the guitar and play the guitar and write songs. And so I did. And so that's why I've been writing songs right along. And so when it came up to the point of hearing they were singing this song, Kill the Boer, I thought to myself, I can do a song about not killing the Boer. So the words just popped into my head. It ain't easy to kill a Boer. And I just I built a history lesson, around that. And I look at myself as just saying something that maybe my Boer Afrikaner friends would say if they were going to write a country song. So I'm just like a good lab, or a good terrier or something, I'm just trying to imitate what it is that stories that people tell me, the things I hear about you. You've told me so much about South Africa and about the different things going on. And that just kind of goes back into what little brain I have. And I try to catalog it according to the things that I learn, so I really learn my songs. I learn them from Afrikaners and from Boers. And I just try to put them together in something maybe that will touch someone's heart.
So I'm going to read some comments from the live audience before we continue our chat, Dean. Sideliner Opinion says Dean could easily have been a Karoo farmer. So the Karoo is the toughest part of the country to farm in, but he thinks you have the minerals within you to be able to be a Karoo desert farmer.
Thank you very much.
Hardest Pretoria says, Dean, you are a legend. Good evening and goeienaand, Erns. And Monique Frick says, I used his song 464 Men to teach my children or my sister's children about the Voortrekker Monument. Can you tell us a bit about that song? How can that song be used to teach people about the Voortrekker Monument?
That really touches my heart because, when I wrote the song, It Ain't Easy to Kill a Boer, people would text me and they would say, or they would email and they would say, I heard your song and I started crying. So if I never wrote another song, And the fact that 464 men would touch someone's heart. Thank you very much for letting me know, because that's, I already know who I am. I'm old enough to, I'm not really impressed by anyone, least of all myself, but I know who I am, and I don't have to, I'm not doing this because I'm making money at it. I'm not doing this because I want people to tell me how wonderful I am. I'm doing this because I want to touch someone's heart. And so when a member of your audience tells me that I've touched their heart, that really, really, really touches my heart. I mean, you do this, the Conscious Caracal, because you love doing it. Because
absolutely.
You're providing a service, not because you're making any money doing it. You're doing it because you want to. And that's the same thing with me. So Boer Media had asked me to do a talk on Blood River. This was, I think, 3 years ago, and I was actually in Kenya when they asked me, and I did it's on Facebook on Boer Media, and they can actually see it, and it talks all about the miracles of Blood River. And I think if you look up just Dean on Boer Media, you can see it. And I think it's got close to 300,000 views now, and it's just for children. So if anybody's listening to that and have some grandchildren and they want to hear an Englishman, is what they called me at Blood River. If they want to hear a Texan talk about Blood River, you can go there, and it tells the story of Blood River, hopefully in an interesting way that may touch a child's heart. But so, I'm going around, and I know there are 464 men. And I don't know if you've ever met Anton, who runs Blood River, does all the hard work there at Blood River.
No, not yet.
Okay. So Anton, he's a big guy, right? So when my son and I were here in 2019, before they locked us down on COVID, we drove out to Blood River. So we walk around and see Blood River, and see the Zulu spears and all this kind of stuff at Blood River, right? And we're walking around and reading about the history. So on the way when I left, I had a CD, and so I see this big guy walking around, and I said, "Sir, would you like a CD? It's just a song I wrote." And no, he says, "Okay." He takes my CD. I'd never heard anything more about it. But 3 years ago, I was in Hatfield again, and and people were playing everywhere. Hoffmeyer is playing up at the monument, and somebody else is playing somewhere else. And I'm thinking to myself, I want to play a song, So I emailed them at Blood River, and Anton sent me an email back, and he says, I took your CD and I played it to the board members of Blood River, and they said, but he's a Yankee. and Anton said, but I told him, no, wait, you have to hear the song. So then they heard the song, and they said, it's okay. The first Yankee we've ever let play at Blood River can come play at Blood River. So that was how I ended up playing at Blood River. And a quick story. So Anton tells me when I meet him again, and it's the same guy that I gave the CD to, 2 years before that. And so that's why he had the CD to play to him. And he said, you know what? He says, I left my CD in my bucky, and the Zulus took it to town. And when they came back from town, they're playing full blast, It Ain't Easy to Kill a Boer. and they said, Anton, can we borrow it? We're having a party on Friday night or Saturday night. Can we borrow the CD? So he says they borrowed the CD, and they took it up on the little hill there. And he said he could hear It Ain't Easy to Kill a Boer all night long coming from the Zulu party up on the hill. So I asked Anton, so I went to stay with Anton and stayed a few days out there. And I said, Anton, what could I write about? He says, write another song about Blood River. And I said, but Anton, what would I write about? What would you encourage me to write about? And he said, the miracles of Blood River. He says, people don't know about the miracles of Blood River. So a light went off in my head, and I said, I think I can write about that. And I had asked children before, when I had done that little history lesson for Boer Media, did they know there were 464 men? And nobody knew it. Nobody intends to know it now, except a certain group of individuals that are interested in it. And we have a saying back home, if you don't know where you come from, you won't know where you're going. And I think Afriform is really behind that message. Maybe not in those words, but don't forget who you are. I mean, don't forget that God loves you. Don't forget that, that this is nothing new to the Boer nation. This is a struggle from the very beginning when they left the Cape. They might
Yeah,
not have
blood, sweat, and tears.
no, exactly. And so this is nothing new. This is just something, and God is not. I said to some folks, I said, God is not up in heaven rubbing his hands together and sweating and going, oh no, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do with my children, the Boer now? They're in it now. I don't think I can help them. No, now, no, God's not saying that at all. So I always had a prayer in my heart. As many Afrikaners and many Boers have had a prayer in their heart that somehow, that America would recognize South Africa. That somebody would take notice of what was going on. But back to the 464. So really, I owe Anton the song of 464 men made a plan, and Boer Media has that video, and we did the video out at Blood River 2 years ago, and they told me that I was they named me a Boer cowboy, and so I was kind of proud of that, So I'm a Boer cowboy, if there's such a thing. But I wanted to, and it's not so as much as it is it a reminder to my friends who told me the stories of Blood River, and I read about the stories of Blood River. It's a reminder to me that God is still alive. The song says 464 men made a plan. And then at the end of the song, it goes, and I'm looking around at the children of 464 men. So the songs of Blood River, I'm looking around at the children of those original 464 men that went out and made a plan for Dingaan, or Dingane. Well, how do I say his name there?
Yeah, Dingaan.
Yeah, so they made a plan and they trusted God, and everybody, one way or another, owes, first of all, a debt to the Lord for the miracles of Blood River, and then a debt to these men. They were willing. They were willing to sacrifice their lives. I'm sure if I'd have seen 100 Zulus charging me, I wouldn't have thought I was going to make it out of that place alive. I don't know if you've been to Blood River, but have you ever seen?
Yes, I have.
So you've seen the kids try to load a musket while someone's charging across the grass at them. Yeah.
So okay, Dean, I'd like to read some other comments. There's some very beautiful comments coming in. Xavier says, amazing how a stranger to our country can pick up so much. Stefan Botha says, thanks, Dean. We as Boere will never give up or surrender. Monique Frick says, I also cried when I hear the song 464 Men. Woke up something in me. The world needs to hear our story. Chris Ayler says, Dean, guys like you inspire us to hold on to our culture. And Monique also says, heard Dean's music for the first time on Colonel Chris Wyatt's stream. God bless the Americans looking out for us. And then Yiz says, Dean has a beautiful singing voice.
We have lost something in. So when I went to South Africa in '89, people would say to me, they would say, what does America think about South Africa and what we're going through? And I would have to tell them, America doesn't think about South Africa. They're thinking about South Africa now, obviously, because thank God for Elon Musk and Trump, and it's in their faces, and nobody knows what's going to happen, but God knows what's going to happen, and that's the beautiful part about it. As Christians, we can say, I don't know, but God knows, and I can just take tomorrow as faith. It's easy for me to say because I don't have any skin in the game, although I'm living in South Africa now, although the wrong set of circumstances, they're not going to give me another visa to stay in South Africa. But you guys have the skin in the game. You guys go through more stuff in a week than we go through in a year in back home in Texas. So I'm stuck in COVID with my son, and they're sending us videos from back home in Texas with nothing left on the store shelves. I mean, they've cleaned out the store shelves. There's not even there. I mean, what would you do with whatever they cleaned out? But they cleaned out all the store shelves. There's nothing on. And I look at my friends and I say, hey, are you guys going to go buy something? We need to go to the store and get some stuff because, and they looked at me and they just laughed. And they said, oh, it's another day in Africa. A Boer Makaplan. And so you guys are really the ones in the trenches. So on top of everything, just the normal stuff, you have all the stuff, all the extra stuff, doing at work, you're doing 5 people's jobs. I mean, it just never stops. Watch out where you drive. Don't let anybody in your gate when you close it. When you stop at a robot, make sure you don't stop at night. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of all the things that the average Afrikaner deals with every day. So you guys, in my book, you're my heroes. And that's why I write about you, because I admire you, what you stand for. I look, and there's just as, we got a lot of jerks at home, and there are jerks everywhere, right? But there are wonderful people everywhere, and that's what, you guys are like in the boiling water every day of your lives, And my message is, look where you came from. Look who you are. Don't give up. God loves you. God has a plan for you, and now to imagine that the whole world knows what a Boer is now. They might not get the distinction between a Boer and an Afrikaner, but they know what a Boer is now. I mean, how wonderful could that be?
Dean, well, there's some comments. The comments are streaming in. I'd love to read them to you. Sideliner Opinion says, Dean has done, wait, let me just put it on the screen. Dean has done more for the cause of the Boers than most Afrikaners. We salute you for fighting with us in our trenches. Leuven Janse van Rensburg says, Dean, so impressed with a Boer maak 'n plan. Your Afrikaans is getting so good. And Sideliner Opinion says, America took very long before they realized the value of the Boers as allies. And then Christoph Smits says, Americans are wonderful too. And the Freighter Watcher says, good afternoon, evening, everyone. Please take a moment to thumbs up and share the stream. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And Nick Miller says, when you stop at a robot, your Dean is a Boer in the way that you pronounce robot. Dean, but someone here mentioned a Boer maak 'n plan. I really want to use the opportunity for you to roll out the red carpet for you to tell us about this new song of yours, Pour Your Heart Out. Why did you write it? What is it about? And what's just the thought process that led you to writing it and wanting to perform it?
Okay, so you got 2 songs there, and you might want to play, if you've got time, play a Boer maak 'n plan. So
right, yeah, and there's the even newer song. So let's start with the second. Boer maak 'n plan is the second newest song, right?
No, so actually the Boer maak 'n plan is the one I did about 4 months ago, but I did a video for that where I dressed up like a Boer,
right, and
dressed up like me. I got to do both parts, which was kind of fun, and it was a very humorous kind of a video. And I decided not to do a video for this next song, so I'll tell you a quick, and I kind of
tell us, so just to get the chronology right, tell us a bit about this Boer maak 'n plan, which is also technically a new song, and then we get to the real latest new song, You Can't Take My Farm, the one that's fresh off your lyrics paper.
So a Boer maak 'n plan, and I really have gotten to identify, people say, hey, Adam Toss actually told me, he said, Dean, he said, if I was singing the kind of songs that you're singing, I wouldn't have a career. And so I'm not, because I'm brave, but it would be like going on your show, if you go on your show and saying something you knew people wanted to hear you say, but it just wasn't the truth. I mean, I know you well enough that you wouldn't do it. So I can't write a song that Pretoria FM was playing the song It Ain't Easy to Kill a Boer. And he told me, he said, the disc jockey at that time, he said, I can't play any of your other songs, but I can play this song. But they're true. So I want to write something that's true. So when I write a song, I try to write something that's true from my heart. So a Boer Makaplan is what I told you when I said, aren't you going to go out and buy something? And they said, they laughed at me, it's another day in Africa, a Boer Makaplan, And that was,
and just for the English audience that haven't picked up yet, a Boer maak 'n plan means a Boer makes a plan.
And I will add a little note to that. At that time, I didn't realize that if there's 10 Boers, there's 10 plans. but other than that,
Right.
a good plan is still a good plan. But so I made a couple little short videos about a Boer Makaplan, and I just got married to a lady in South Africa, and she said to me, Dean, you're going to get us killed, right? And I said, baby, just don't worry about that. That's nonsense. Nobody can recognize. No one's going to recognize me. So we drive through a security gate the other day, and a guy looks at me and he goes, and I ignore him, right? I ignored him. And then the next time we went by, he started waving again, this black guy, and starts playing the guitar. So I got recognized, So I went later. I went and just took a picture with him,
But, no, he's a fan.
Yes, but when I had made but let's go ahead and talk about. I'm talking too much, so I'll tell you about a Boer Makaplan. So I decided to make the song a Boer Makaplan, and that's when I had to learn, some Afrikaans. Hy's lief vir sy familie, sy plaas en verkieses. So I had to learn my course in Afrikaans. And that way, as I'm learning how to sing, I'm learning how to say things too, which has been a big help to my old brain. But it's, I don't know if you want to play the song or people can just go watch it, but I think it's kind of funny.
I recommend people after the stream, they can go listen to it. It is on YouTube and it's everywhere else as well, Dean. It's on Spotify and all these platforms.
Yeah, so they can watch that and hopefully they'll enjoy it. But it's kind of a funny thing that about Boers, and hopefully they enjoy it. So,
well, definitely, I would definitely endorse it as a song that people should go listen on YouTube. And it's one of your latest songs. But now to get to your latest song, Dean, is "You Can't Take My Farm." It's a song that doesn't have a music video. It's a song that you just recently finished. Tell us the story there. Why did you write it? What is it about?
It doesn't have a music video to it, and I probably won't do a music video because almost 5 years ago, I'm sitting back in America. Actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, almost 5 years ago, I'm sitting back in the States, and we're stuck in COVID, so all I have to do is write songs. And so I wrote the song about the crosses because Joshua and I had been out there before COVID started in 2019. We went out to the crosses. And the guy that owns the farm, Harry, has passed away now, but he took us up to the crosses. And so I wrote a song about the crosses, and the song says, I know why the dirt's so red. Let their memorial stand till you come back. Burn it in my heart, burn it in my head. It says, I know why the dirt's so red. And basically it's a litany of names. It says Ina and Isaac, Esme and Joshua. And it goes through a litany of names of, I don't know how many names I was able to fit in there, but but I'm going to actually, I decided not to do a video on the song, You Can't Take My Farm, because I want to do another video on the crosses. So we're actually, when I get back, I'm in Germany right now, but when we get back to South Africa, I've already started on the song, and the song says, it says, white crosses, I wish they were red, for the children that were murdered, for the families that are dead. So I really want to say something, and maybe I don't want to be so preachy that people can't listen to it. And you gave me the information for the gentleman that works with AfriForum, and I'm going to go talk to him on the 3rd. So I want to kind of fill my knowledge up a little bit more, and I want to be able to finish that song and go make another song at the crosses. So that's why I decided not to make a video on this one. But so I was at Bennett Blood River, been to Mayuba, and all the farmers, not all of the farmers, but I'm sure these guys are the smaller farmers. They all say the same thing. They say, they're not taking my farm. I got a gun. And if they take my farm, it's war, right? And everybody in the city says, no, there's not going to be any war. There's not going to be a problem. And so I don't know, because nobody knows. But all we can do is pray and hope that they don't start taking farms, because I don't believe the Boer has anywhere to go. The Zimbabwe, they had somewhere to flee to. Where's the Boer going to go? Or somebody that loves his land, that his great-great-great-grandfather built this farm, made this farm out of nothing with blood, sweat, and tears, just what you said. Where's he going to go? He's not going to go anywhere. And I think people...
His family and his ancestors are buried on that farm.
No, you are exactly right. Where's he going to go? He's not going to go anywhere. He says, people for thousands of years said, I'm dying right here. So we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So they say nobody's taking my farm. So I wrote that song really for them. Nobody is taking my farm. Nobody is taking my children's inheritance. As long as there's blood pumping through my veins, nobody is taking my God-given right to live on this farm that belonged to absolutely nobody before my great-great-great-grandfather got here. He didn't buy it from anybody. There was nothing there when he got there. There was no water there. There was nothing. And so, all I can say is my own little way of trying to say, you can't take my farm.
And where can people find the song of yours, Dean? Where is it available?
It's available on WhatsApp. It's going around on WhatsApp some. Boer Media, I think, said it on WhatsApp, and some other people put it on WhatsApp. But they can also find it on any of the streaming platforms. They can listen to it for free on YouTube. They can also download it on my website, deanssongs.com. It'll be up there in a few days. They can download it for free on there.
There's a link in the description of this video to your website if people want to go check out. And you have a YouTube channel as well, Dean. What's the name of your YouTube channel?
It's called deanssongs.com.
And on YouTube, is it Dean Chancy?
Yes, on YouTube it's Dean Chancy. If you just put "You Can't Take My Farm" and put Dean Chancy, they can listen to it on YouTube.
Fantastic. Dean, there's still so many comments coming in. I'd love to read them for you before we start wrapping up. Let's see here. The next comment I want to read is Stefan Botha, who says, Ernst, you and Dean together making us Boere proud. Dean, remember, a Boer het ook 'n plan. So he says a Boer makes a plan, but a Boer also has a plan. And then Leuven Hansen van Rensburg says, I disagree, Dean. 10 Boers, 15 plans.
That's good.
And then Helena van Zyl says, just love Dean. You get what you see. Rare honesty. Dean, you're a fan favorite. The audience loves you. And for that, I want to give you the opportunity to maybe as a final thought, tell us what is as an American, your humble thought for Afrikaners and Boers. What do you want to leave them with this week to think about? Maybe just a message. It can be a sentence. It can be a thought. It can be anything that you want to leave almost as like a little seed at the back of their minds to all the Afrikaners listening to you here tonight. What's your message as a humble Texan?
At the end of the day, I think that we all want the same thing for our children. And nobody I know, I think there are over 100,000 people in squatter camps in South Africa, Afrikaners in squatter camps because of BEE. And I know that them, along with everybody else, we want the same thing. We want to be safe. In America, the same way. We want to be safe. We want to have a way to make a living. And we want a future for our children. And I know the people don't want to leave South Africa. The people that I know, the Boers and the Afrikaners, they don't want to leave. But everybody wants the same thing. And if it takes going to America to having that, we don't know. But I would just encourage everyone to just pray, because you know what? God knows. And God hasn't given up, and he's not up there worried about the Afrikaner and the Boer. He's got a plan. It's just up to us to to encourage him, to say, hey, Lord, what's the plan? What's the plan for each of our individual lives? Because he loves us enough, and he especially loves the Afrikaner and the Boer. And don't let anybody tell you that you didn't charge up Africa and build a nation, because you built a nation, and without you guys, there wouldn't be a South Africa.
Well, Dean, thank you very much for those kind words, and thank you for the music that you're creating, the art that you're creating. And as you can see from the comments here tonight, you're absolutely a fan favorite. The Boers of South Africa really do love the songs that you're making. Yiz says, Amen, long live the Boer. Thank you very much. And Dean, I just want to end then with endorsements. I want people to go listen to your songs. There's links in the description to Dean's website and his YouTube channel. Go listen to his songs, share his songs, and enjoy them. They are very, very, very nice. I enjoy them personally.
You can get in touch with me on my website. It's got a place to email if you want to get in touch with me. I'd love to hear from anyone that wants to write me. You want to come by Pretoria, I'll be back there. Let's have a beer or a coffee.
Fantastic. I think people need to take up that offer. Dean is incredible company. And people are sending very nice messages. Crystal Smith says the devil will not win. Well, we have to work hard to ensure that he does not. Dean, thank you very much for everything that you're doing. Thank you for the art that you're creating. And then also thank you to everyone that tuned in. Thank you for your comments, your questions. Really appreciate it. Thank you for contributing to the show with your inputs as well. And if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, you can subscribe. And if you're watching and it's no longer live, you can still be part of the conversation by leaving your thoughts in the comment section. I read all of them and appreciate all of them. Dean, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, rest of 2025. And I look forward to hearing the many more songs that you're going to write and perform in the future.
Thank you very much, and God bless you for what you do. And please say hi to Tamara for me.
I will. Cheers, guys. Have a good one, and God bless.
God bless all of you.